Are you scared? Well, you're not scared enough, because we're going to be talking about Stephen King's Salem's Lot. As by way of introduction, I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. This is my video review channel where I review books, music, and movies, and also do writing advice. Today we'll be discussing Salem's Lot, Stephen King's second novel in my series of Stephen King reviews, where I review every one of his novels in publication order on YouTube for my fans. We've got a great fan base. In just a few days, we've got over 200 subscribers already and about 20,000 views, so we are doing great. I love you all. I love you all that have been watching and subscribing. Please, please, please keep it up. Tell your friends. Tell everybody. Anyway, let's get right to it. You know, Stephen King scared me before I even knew who Stephen King was. Growing up in Fairbanks, Alaska, me and my buddy, we were great, huge, big fans of Starsky and Hutch. And we saw an advertisement on TV coming for a movie that was coming on TV starring David Soul, the star of Starsky and Hutch. And so we were like, man, we got permission from our parents to stay up late and watch that movie. And that was a mistake, because we were traumatized. That movie was Salem's Lot. And we were traumatized. I was so scared. I don't get scared at horror movies. But as a little kid watching Salem's Lot, that was some intense stuff. I didn't even know who Stephen King was at the time. Well, fast forward a few years later, I get to be a young man in junior high school. I start reading a book called Christine by Stephen King. I loved it. I became a Stephen King fan. The second book I read was Salem's Lot. And I put two and two together, and I'm like, this is the same story of that movie I watched in Alaska that scared me to death. First introduction to Stephen King, didn't even know it was Stephen King, was a movie. The second time I read this book was about 10 years ago. And back then I worked a graveyard shift, so I would stay up all night. Even on my days off, I would stay up all night and read. And I would read on my front porch under the light of the stars and a few candles like this. And it was great. It was great. And one night I was reading out there, and I got a weird neighbor, man. A weird neighbor. Just weird. Everybody's had a weird neighbor, right? Well, a car pulls up in front of her house, honks the horn. She comes stumbling out of her house drunk, gets in a car, drives off. I'm just sitting on my porch reading my book, minding my own business. About an hour later, that car pulls back up. That lady gets out, stumbles out even more drunk. The car drives off. She's trying to make it into her house, stumbles, passes out face first onto her front lawn, just out cold. Done. And I'm reading my book, but I can't concentrate. I got this drunk lady passed out face first on her lawn right out of the corner of my eye. I can't read. I can't enjoy myself. Night's ruined. What do? Get in my pickup truck, back it down the driveway just enough so it blocks my view of that lady laying there in the grass. Sit back on the porch, enjoy my book. Do you know why? Because I was reading Salem's Lot. I didn't want to be distracted. Weird neighbors. I don't know which one of us is the weirder one. She was okay. A little bit later, she stood up, stumbled back into her house, and everything was fine. That was the second time I read it. This is the third. The third time I read it is this week. This week, I read this again. I opened it up, and I followed along to the Audible.com version read by Ron McClarty. I'm also reading, when I reread these for this video blog, I am rereading these as also at the same time I am listening to the Audible.com version. And Ron McClarty does a great job. So my review of his work is great. Great voice actor. He did a great job reading this book. Didn't miss a word. Not one word. That's my third reread. And what did I think? I thought it was great. Stephen King's second book, he grew leaps and bounds between book 1 and 2. Now, it starts off a little bit like Carrie. Some of my negative review of Carrie was, hey, this guy is jumping all over the place. He's got investigative reports, he's got flashbacks and news reports and people being interviewed, and it kind of broke up the flow of the story a little bit. And this started out like that with a big flash forward. But Stephen King ditched that pretty early on and got right into the meat of the story, and it was great. It was great. He didn't waste time. Another thing that I liked about this book was the themes that kind of carry through all of Stephen King's later novels. You know, he kind of builds them. He kind of starts with them here. Some of those themes are like the small New England town with all the quirky characters, the it's like literary fiction, only with monsters and stuff. You got a small New England town with all these characters that just have all these different problems, and I lived in Connecticut for a while. I know what a small New England town is like, and King nails it. He nails the atmosphere. He nails the personality of the characters. He gets it right. He gets that all right. One of the other themes that he introduces in this book that follows him throughout a lot of his other books is the protagonist is a writer, an author. Stephen King does this quite a bit. Ben Mears, our main character, he is an author, and he comes into town, Salems Lot. Let's just get the major plot points. I don't do spoilers in these reviews, so you're free to watch to the end. I just talk about main plot points and overall feel of the novel. Plot points, theme, character. The author puts in another author as his main protagonist, Ben Mears. Ben Mears comes to Salems Lot because he wants to write a story about the town and a place called Marsden House, where he had a lot of bad things happen to him as a kid. So he's returning to this town to do a story about some of the bad things that happened to him as a kid. And it's kind of a therapeutic thing for him. He's doing the story, and he's the new person in town, so we get to meet all the characters through his eyes. Now, a couple of other people come to town too. A couple of other people come to Salem's Lot. Mr. Staker and Mr. Barlow. They come to Salem's Lot, and they're not good guys. They ain't good guys. They're not good at all. They're baddies. They are baddies. And people start to notice that weird stuff weird stuff is happening in town. Is it Staker? Is it Barlow? Is it Ben Mears? Is it our protagonist? They can't figure it out because it's weird stuff. Kids go missing. Kids get kidnapped. Kids are killed. Just stuff is happening. Things are going wrong in a hurry. Now, everybody knows Salem's Lot is about vampires. We know that Barlow is a vampire. Staker kind of wanders around town. He's a creepy dude. He wanders around town. He's a baddie. He's a creepy dude. But Barlow kind of stays behind the scenes, which makes him even more dangerous because we don't know who he is. He's just hiding. He's hiding in the haunted house. The haunted house. This is the thing. This is kind of also not only a vampire novel, it's a haunted house novel. It is a great haunted house novel. It's great. And the vampires. Oh, let's talk about them. They're not sparkly. They don't sparkle. They are bad. They are mean. They are evil. They are dark. They are pagan. They are like bad dudes. And, I have nothing against Twilight. I like the movies. I got involved I got all wrapped up in the love story. Yeah, I admitted it. I didn't mind them. But Stephen King's vampires are way better, way better, way better. I mean, we got stakes in the heart. We got crucifixes. We got people drinking blood. We got people biting each other and turning each other into monsters. We got possession. We got all of the bad things that vampires are known for in here. And this is one of the very first, in the 70s vampire novels that was just not full of love stories and Edward and I was really hoping that other guy would get Bella, but he didn't. Anyway, the chase scenes at the end of this novel. Oh my gosh, when I was a kid, I was riveted to that. I didn't know Stephen King had written Salem's Lot at that time, but that movie scared me. The chase scenes at the end of that scared me. The chase scenes, it's great. Gripping. You can't do better. The only negative thing I really got to say about this is about the New England town just had too many people in it. Stephen King is known for these New England towns that have all these weird, quirky people, but this novel was a little too short for the amount of people and characters he put in the town. Not all of them got enough screen time, and I think this book would have been better had it been the size of It or something like that. But that's a minor quibble. Everyone would want all of Stephen King's to be as big as It because we love Stephen King's writing. We want more of it. That's the only negative I've got to say about it. Positive. I think this is great. For his second novel, I am going to give this a solid 9 out of 10. And I love most of Stephen King's novels. This is the paperback, the hardcover's behind me. Got a few other paperbacks, and I got the Audible version. Everybody should get Everybody should get a paperback, hardcover, and an Audible version of all their books, including mine. Self-promotion over. I give this a solid 9 out of 10. It's way better than Carrie. I gave Carrie about a 6.5 out of 10. It was a good first novel. This is a smashing success for a second novel. You know, when this came out, people were wondering if Stephen King was just a one-hit wonder. Well, he proved he was not. And look at his career now. Oh my gosh, one of the greatest literary treasures on the planet. Another positive thing that I'm going to mention before I end this is there was a reference in this book to Jim Plunkett. If you don't know who Jim Plunkett is, let me tell you. He was the quarterback of the Oakland Raiders when the Raiders won the Super Bowl in 1981 and the Super Bowl in 1983. He is awesome. Now, I think that the reference to Jim Plunkett that Stephen King made in this was back when Jim Plunkett played for the New England Patriots. A boo. No. Not only that, but if you're a Denver Bronco fan, I don't care if you watch. I mean, you can watch these videos if you want, but just know that, you know, you're a Denver Bronco fan, and just looking at Bronco uniforms just makes me want to. Anyway, I'm still processing my way through puberty a little bit, so if my jokes are stupid, whatever. So, on that note about the Oakland Raiders, I'm going to end every single video with the same thing. I dedicate every one of my novels to Stephen King, Motley Crue, and the Oakland Raiders. Because those were the three, Stephen King, Motley Crue, and the Oakland Raiders were the three most important things to me when I was a high school kid growing up. And so everything that I do is dedicated to them. So thank you for watching this video and putting up with my nonsense. I know I put a lot of nonsense and goofiness in these videos, but I want them to be somewhat entertaining. So please go get Salem's Lot. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. Salem's Lot is a great book. You should all be reading it right now.